Hello and welcome, everyone. Today, I'll be diving into a thrilling action-packed crime drama from 2021, titled Night Teeth. Warning, spoilers ahead, so watch out. The story unfolds in modern Los Angeles, where, unbeknownst to most, vampires have coexisted with humans since ancient times. Long ago, it was a brutal battle for survival between the two. But today, things are more complex, especially in Boyle Heights, a neighborhood that's fiercely protected itself and forged a fragile truce to keep the peace. Now, vampires remain hidden, blending into society while amassing wealth and influence as the rest of the world believes them to be nothing more than myths. A secret human group has set strict rules to keep peace with vampires, who are allowed to thrive as long as they follow three unbreakable rules: keep their existence hidden, never feed on unwilling victims, and above all, never enter Boyle Heights without permission. One evening, Maria is at the laundromat, lost in her routine, when her boyfriend Jay suddenly appears, surprising her as he offers to take her out. They leave together in his car, but as they drive off, Maria notices a mysterious vehicle following them, and Jay, uneasy, recognizes it instantly. Jay feels a surge of dread as he realizes who's following them. They aren't supposed to be here. As he stops at a red light, he reaches into the glove compartment, pulling out a gun just as the other car pulls up beside them, revealing its driver, a vampire named Victor. The two lock eyes in tense silence until the light turns green, and Jay speeds off, parking near an abandoned building. He turns to Maria, instructing her to take the car and leave because he has to warn his crew. After a quick kiss, Jay disappears into the building, only to be confronted by a gruesome sight: members of his crew, dead and hanging from the ceiling, victims of an unseen menace. Jay rushes back outside when he hears the shattering sound of his car window breaking, only to find the door ripped off and Maria gone, taken by unknown captors. Meanwhile, the next day, Jay's younger brother Benny dozes off in class, drawing laughter when his professor abruptly wakes him up. After class, he busies himself completing papers he sells for extra cash, then buys a new piece of equipment for his mixer, dreaming of making it as a musician. When he finally arrives home, he greets his grandmother and heads to his room to work on his music, but his focus is broken by raised voices coming from another room. Benny heads over to check on the commotion and finds Jay in a heated phone conversation, arguing over someone's reliability and mentioning Maria. Just before Jay notices him, he hangs up. Benny seizes the chance to ask if Jay wants to hang out that night, but Jay declines, saying he's got plans. When Benny hears Jay mention his car won't be covered, he eagerly volunteers, hoping to earn some cash, but Jay dismisses him, reminding him he's a terrible driver. As Jay unpacks a mysterious knife from a box, Benny's curiosity prompts a few too many questions, and Jay, frustrated, snaps at him. However, seeing his brother's need for the extra cash, Jay finally relents and agrees to let Benny take over his chauffeur gig just this once. Jay gives Benny a strict set of rules for the job. He has to wear a suit, keep the car scratch-free, keep the music at a low volume, and above all, pretend to be Jay, since that's the name on the license and registration. Jay even shows him how to start the car with just a press of a button on the keychain. Soon, Benny is off to Beverly Hills to pick up two glamorous women, Blair and Zoe, who hand him a list of 5 addresses and insist they need to make it to each party that night, arriving at the final location by morning, no exceptions. On the way to the first party, Blair and Zoe keep Benny entertained with some bold, uncomfortable games, like asking him who he'd sleep with, marry, or kill. Benny, caught off guard, tries to respond without losing his professional cool. When they arrive at the first location, Benny watches as the women flash a special button for scanning before entering the building. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jay confides in a friend, wrestling with the guilt of shattering a peace upheld for 3 generations. His friend reassures him, reminding Jay that it's Victor who broke the rules and is now sparking a war with Boyle Heights. Jay and his friend gear up, determined to hunt down Victor and end this by sunrise. Meanwhile, at the party, Benny dozes off in the car, jolting awake at the sound of a scream. Curiosity gets the best of him, so he steps outside and accidentally kicks something on the ground. It's one of those special buttons, which he quickly pockets. Unbeknownst to him, a van is parked nearby with a crossbow aimed right at him. But Benny is oblivious, distracted as Blair and Zoe emerge from the party, ready to head to their next destination. At the second party, Benny waits in the parking lot, catching up on his college reading to pass the time. Suddenly, Zoe's phone starts ringing in the car, and although he tries to ignore it, he can't help but notice a message from someone named Victor, asking about Jay and hinting he can't wait to see his reaction. Alarmed, Benny tries calling his brother, but it goes straight to voicemail. Growing uneasy, he decides to dig a little deeper and checks inside Zoe's bag, only to find stacks of cash stained with blood. Fear grips Benny as he stares at the blood-stained cash, and his anxiety only heightens when he notices a police car pulling into the lot. Nervously, he slips out of the parking area, avoiding the cop, and heads into the hotel. The receptionist eyes him suspiciously, ready to call security, explaining that it's a members-only establishment. But when Benny holds up the special button he found, her demeanor shifts. She scans the button, then, hearing he's looking for Zoe and Blair, she unlocks a secret elevator with a special key, leading him to an exclusive floor where, she says, the women are meeting with the owners. Benny steps into the room at the end of the hallway, his heart racing, only to be confronted with a chilling scene. Zoe and Blair feeding onto men, their bodies tied to special rotating tables, blood draining from them. Before he can fully process what's happening, Zoe, with supernatural speed, appears right in front of him, shoving him against the wall and mocking his trembling fear. In that moment, Benny reveals his true identity, admitting he's been covering for his brother, something Zoe had already suspected. She eyes him hungrily, eager to drink his blood, but Blair intervenes, suggesting Benny might be more useful alive. He could lead them to Jay. Their tense conversation is abruptly cut short when one of the men wakes up, horrified to realize his partner is dead, a direct violation of vampire rules. Without hesitation, Blair feeds on him, silencing his protests with a fatal bite. Terrified, Benny bolts for the parking lot, desperate to tell the cop what he's just witnessed. But when he mentions the murders, the officer reacts by slapping handcuffs on him and shoving him toward his trunk. The situation shifts when Zoe and Blair return, claiming Benny as theirs. The cop, clearly aware of the vampire society and its rules, backs off slightly, but demands an explanation. The girls insist Benny simply misunderstood what he saw, but their vague explanation isn't enough to convince the officer. The officer remains suspicious, still not having received any call about collectors for the night. The girls coolly suggest he call Victor if he has an issue before they leave with Benny. As Benny tries to text his brother for help, Zoe snatches his phone and crushes it in her hand. Moments later, while driving the girls around again, Benny seizes an opportunity to escape when they stop at a red light. But with lightning speed, Zoe is on him in an instant, dragging him back into the car. Meanwhile, at Victor's lair, he casually drinks blood from a tap connected to a network of prisoners, each trapped in glass cages, helpless and feeding his twisted thirst. After snapping a selfie with the girls, Victor drives off in his car, heading to the home of his vampire bosses, Eva and Grace. There, he faces their wrath as they scold him for breaking the truce, accusing him of recklessness and declaring that his betrayal means he must die. But Victor isn't remorseful. Instead, he confesses his frustration with being a mere middleman, shackled by the rules of the truce. Tired of his lack of freedom, he reveals his true plan. He sent the girls to kill all the vampire bosses, and now Eva and Grace are next on his list. Everything, he says, now belongs to him. As Benny drives, Blair takes the opportunity to explain everything to him. Zoe, she reveals, is Victor's girlfriend, and together with Blair, they handle the money for various businesses and blood clubs across the city. But now, tired of being powerless, Victor is making his move. There are 5 powerful vampire bosses who control the major territories of LA, and Victor's plan is to take them all out in a single night before anyone can stop them. Jay, as the leader of a crew protecting Boyle Heights and a skilled vampire hunter, was the perfect candidate for the job. Victor had intended to use him to kill the bosses, but when Jay turned him down, the plan shifted. The girls were supposed to hire him and bring him to Victor at the end of the night. Instead, they ended up with Benny. Benny refuses to tell Blair where his brother is, so she drops the subject and, instead, shares a joint with him to ease the tension. Meanwhile, Zoe is on the phone with Victor, who's just finished killing Eva and Grace. The plan is unfolding as expected, and they're confident they'll succeed. But Zoe is forced to admit that they've got the wrong driver. Victor, unfazed, reassures her that he'll take care of Jay and tells her to keep Benny as insurance, ensuring that they won't be caught off guard. Jay and his crew arrive at the mansion of one of the bosses, Gio, hoping he knows where Victor is, since he was involved in making him. Inside, they find a gruesome scene: vampire bodies scattered throughout the house, with Gio being the only one left alive. He reveals Victor's plan and admits that it was his girls who carried out the killings. Before Jay can get more information, Gio tries to bite him, but Jay responds with quick gunshots, ending the confrontation. Meanwhile, Benny and the girls stop at a convenience store to grab snacks, and in a moment of honesty, Benny admits to Zoe that he's attracted to Blair. As Benny and the girls dance, Zoe becomes suspicious, thinking the clerk is staring at them and calling someone. In a burst of anger, she marches over, shoving him onto the counter, demanding he confess, only to find out he was just talking to his mom. After Blair silences him with tape, they quickly leave, heading to their next destination, a highly exclusive bar. Once there, Benny tries to slip away, but the girls threaten him, warning that if he pulls any stunts, bodies will start to drop. Recognizing their importance, they bypass the long queue and go straight to the door, confident and in control. As Benny approaches the entrance to the bar, he spots his classmates at the front of the line, and they immediately ask him to get them in. Reluctantly, he tells them he can't do that, but when they realize he's working as some kind of servant, they start laughing at him, eager to mock him further. Just as Benny's embarrassment grows, Blair steps in, saving him from the humiliation by kissing him passionately and telling his classmates to find someone else to leech off. She orders the security guard to send them to the back of the line, and despite their protests, he obeys. Unbeknownst to them, Jay and his crew are also making their way in, bribing another guard to gain entry. Inside the club, Benny and the girls slip into a secret room, only to find it empty of the vampire boss. Instead, a vampire hunter awaits them, armed with a crossbow, ready to strike now that the truce has been shattered. Zoe tries to intimidate him, but the hunter calls in his team, all equally armed and prepared for a fight. As he orders his men to kill the girls, Benny acts fast, smashing a bottle of champagne over the hunter's head, creating a brief but crucial distraction. This gives the vampires enough time to overpower and kill the entire team, while Benny stands frozen, staring at the deep cut the bottle has left on his hand. As Benny and the girls leave the club, they are spotted by Jay, who attempts to follow them in a bid to rescue his brother. However, they are intercepted by another vampire, whom Jay swiftly kills with a special knife that burns his entire body. After leaving the club, Jay is confronted by a vampire hunter who tries to persuade him to join their cause, but he refuses, stating that he only wants Victor dead, not the entire vampire race. Meanwhile, as Benny drives the girls away, they are pursued by hunters firing crossbows, but he skillfully dodges their shots and speeds off to his grandmother's house for safety. Upon their arrival, Benny's grandmother, thinking they are robbers, attacks them with a bat, adding a chaotic twist to their already perilous situation. When Benny's grandmother notices his injured hand, she quickly drags him to the kitchen, preparing to stitch and bandage the wound, while Blair offers to help. As Zoe steps into the bathroom to call Victor and update him on their progress, Benny takes a moment to grab one of Jay's knives from the box he had seen earlier. He then retreats to his room, where he finds Blair listening to his music, clearly enjoying it. Benny opens up about his dream of making it big with his music, and in return, Blair shares the story of how she met Zoe back in the 70s. She reveals that it was she who turned Zoe, giving her the new life she now leads. Having bonded over their shared stories, Blair suggests leaving Benny behind, but Zoe refuses, and it quickly becomes irrelevant as Benny expresses his desire to go with them. Meanwhile, Jay meets with Victor at an empty restaurant to confront him about the broken truce. After a tense exchange, Jay shoots Victor in the head, but to his surprise, the wound begins healing almost immediately. Victor smugly admits that he killed Maria, adding fuel to Jay's rage. Back on the road, Benny and the girls arrive at their final destination, where they face off with the last vampire boss, Rocco, ready for their ultimate showdown. Rocco invites Benny and the girls inside, and after teasing Benny, he points out that nobody called ahead. They've shown up unannounced. Zoe, ever the strategist, pretends to flirt with him to create a distraction, allowing Blair and Benny to slip away to the pool. There they share an emotional conversation that quickly turns passionate as they start making out, but Blair suddenly pulls away to confess that Victor has Jay. Inside, Zoe makes an attempt to stab Rocco with a knife, but Rocco is already one step ahead, knowing exactly what they're after and calling for backup. As a brutal fight ensues between the girls and Rocco's men, Benny rushes outside, jumping into the car and running over a vampire hunter who appears unexpectedly in the middle of the road. Blair and a wounded Zoe manage to fight off more vampire hunters waiting for them in the street before getting into the car. With the sun almost rising, Zoe urgently needs blood to heal, so Benny drives them toward their final destination, Victor's home. Once they arrive, Blair orders Benny to stay behind, warning him that following them inside will get him killed. However, Benny, driven by worry for his brother, refuses to back down. Determined to find Jay, he sneaks into the house after the girls disappear inside. Armed with a bat, Benny finds the gruesome scene of prisoners being drained of their blood, and to his horror, he discovers that Jay is among them. Just as Benny is about to break the glass with the bat, Victor finds him and takes him upstairs, where Zoe is receiving a blood transfusion. Desperate, Benny tries to make a deal. He offers to go with them if they let Jay go free. Victor, ever the manipulator, begins a long monologue, and Benny, sensing an opportunity, tries to kill him with the special knife. However, Victor is far too fast, effortlessly stopping Benny's attack. Although Victor is ready to kill Benny, Blair intervenes, revealing she wants out of the violent life they've been living. This confession enrages Zoe, who thought they'd be in this together forever, and in the heat of their argument, Zoe stabs Blair in the stomach. In a split second, Benny activates the car with his keychain, having cleverly placed a rock on the accelerator pedal earlier. The car speeds forward, crashing into the window and letting the sunlight pour in, instantly turning Zoe to ashes. As Benny picks up her knife, he spots Jay appearing in the room, chained up. Relieved, he moves toward him, but soon realizes it's a trap set by Victor to lure him into the shadows and bite him. Just as Benny is about to fall into the trap, Blair, still alive despite her wounds, leaps at him and stabs Victor multiple times, saving Benny from certain death. Victor effortlessly pushes Blair off just as Jay jumps on him, forcefully shoving Victor into the sunlight, where he burns to death. With Victor finally defeated, Blair hurries to Benny's side, realizing he's gravely injured. Knowing he won't survive, she feeds him her own blood, turning him into a vampire. Days later, Jay and Benny meet for dinner after visiting Maria's memorial. Benny promises Jay he won't forget who he's fighting for when chaos erupts across the city, before leaving him with a bag full of money as a final gesture. Benny tries to focus on his studies at the library, but the sound of a woman's pulse keeps distracting him, making it impossible to concentrate. Frustrated, he leaves the building, only to bump into his classmates outside, who express concern about his recent absence. He reassures them that he's fine, but they're left speechless when Blair pulls up in a sleek, fancy car to pick him up, leaving them stunned and questioning what's really going on with him.